Kalimera Solus Kai Kalasirta Testo Oeconomica, and welcome everybody to Oeconomica, all about economics and finance. So as you can see, I'm recording and working at the same time. Very quickly, as fast as I get the results, I'm uploading the CSV file so that we see it together, and so that we have a look at the models that I implemented to finally trying to understand what's going on with the tariffs, how those are going to deviate the infinite inflation measures in the UK, for the United States economy. Let me just upload this stuff and we will check it out together. I need to be sure what I'm uploading. Here you can see just a small chart showing, for example, that we will have a 0.2% increase in inflation for semiconductors PPI. There is a variety of things. It's very difficult to capture the exact pass-through effect of tariffs. Why? There are many reasons. So first of all, we have also always to bear in mind that any econometric model, any modeling, whether you do it on pen and paper or just an Excel working paper, it's a software. Then what counts most, it's human behavior. So we cannot basically extrapolate from time series analysis what can be the exporters, importers behavior, how they're going to absorb those tariffs, how the volumes of commerce in goods and services will vary. So there are so many data points to take, but basically setting aside all the data points, we have always have to keep in mind what the human behavior, which is the unknown variable in the whole set of modeling equations that we can implement. Nevertheless, from the data, we see what we receive. We can see the outcome of human behavior in the economy, in the socio-economic structure of the wider economy, whether it's a domestic economy or it's the global economy, import, exports, and then the producers, what are the retailers doing, because there are two or three folds in this whole mambo jumbo of the import tariffs or export tariffs towards the United States market. And basically what what can be my understanding or trying to figure out, what actually it can be very much, I don't want to use the word impacted, what can deviate from average prices and generate an inflationary pass-through in retail prices, are those businesses who are in the United States who import stuff, the retailers, so exactly the retailers category. So those businesses who import goods and they resell it into the United States, so into the market. So they import, I don't know, banana from Indonesia, or I don't know, cocoa from Indonesia, or coffee, or from I don't know, saffron from India. I'm just doing some random funny example to explain those importers who don't transform the goods that they import and they just sell it as a product. I believe that that part of the economy will have to absorb the most the cost of tariffs, Duane tariffs, not Mark Twain, customs tariffs. Okay, I was trying the French word which doesn't come up, so customs tariffs. And so if I'm a retailer and I import cheese from Italy, or pasta, or wine from France, and German sausages and chorizo from Spain, and I don't know, lamb and pork from the UK, and lamb from Ireland, all that kind of stuff. If I'm a butcher or I'm a wine merchant and I import that stuff from Europe, for example, I will have to absorb the most those tariffs, customs, and then they will have to be, I will be forced as a retailer in the United States, I will be forced to to place another an addendum markup on the goods that I'm selling, that I'm providing to the wider consumer spectrum. I hope that I explain myself properly. So if I'm a wine merchant and I'm importing champagne or prosecco, then I'm not transforming the product. I just take the ready available, the finite product, which is ready to consume, and then when I'm importing prosecco or champagne, I'll have to pay a custom tariff, and then that same custom tariff will have an immediate pass-through effect on the shelf. When I take the champagne bottle and I put it on the shelf in my wine merchant shop in downtown Manhattan or in New York or in Mulberry Street, then that bottle of champagne that comes from, it's imported directly from France, will have a 15% markup in the final retail price. And that becomes, basically fits through into the data and becomes a pass-through effect of inflation. So that's the most direct, visible, empirical data that inflation survey can find. So that's the most simple modeling that we can figure out. Of course, while we see tariffs being set through, then importers, they will have to import the stuff, and then there is the so-called lagged effect of the inflation pass-through effect on consumer prices. So when tariff starts to be implemented starting from August, or they've been already going on by the middle of the year, let's say from May, June, July, I don't have the exact time because I'm not in charge of putting tariffs on anybody. God forbid. I'm all in favor of free trade and stuff like that. But anyway, what counts is that retailers, they will have to absorb immediately, directly, the cost of customs tariffs or custom duties or taxes, however you want to call it. And then from retailers or resellers, then you have the direct markup in the final product on the shelves for the consumer, and then it's visible the costs of goods. Then there is the other component of semi-manufactured or intermediate goods, and that is more difficult to capture, to find into the data. You can find it, but it takes time because tariffs, custom duties are going in now, and then it's very complicated. I made a short video. It's very complicated for anybody in any central bank or in any macroeconomic think tank or whatever to figure out this stuff, because it's very complicated. Because you want to find something of a variable that you don't have any data point, and you want to project this forecast in the future. So it's all up in the air. So what I managed to do is just to run a multivariate OLS regression with some discrete results. So what I've got today, it's tomorrow there will be the CPI core, the inflation data for the United States. So I'll try to show you how my ARIMA and SARIMA models have created their forecast for basically how I elaborated the out-of-sample forecast for the normal time series. Model forecast, so let's download this stuff. You will see my model forecast. Let me just write this so that we have the latest data possible. So we will see together what are the out-of-sample forecast for the time series, for the inflation, core inflation, and all that stuff, all that nice, chunky stuff that I look at almost daily, 18, 20 hours a day, like a machine. And then I'll try to we'll sit together live how we already have one very nice table here, very quick to see. Let's make it larger so that it's larger for all my friends who are watching my video. Thank you so much. Just give me a like or a comment, follow this channel, subscribe. You will not find anywhere else the content I provide here at Economica, and it's very enjoyable. So here we have already a first flavor of what can be the pass-through effect of custom duties, increased custom duties or tariffs on this inflation time series, which are taken from the official data of the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we are basically interrogating this time series here. So these are the US, United States city average, all items inflation index, food and beverage inflation index, food at home inflation index, cereals and bakery products, meat, fish, not beverage. So all these mambo jumbo here, new vehicles, used car, transport, the grandma on granny going to the pharmacy, I don't know, and whatever is DoorDash and energy, how expensive is energy, and take away food at home, food away from home, all all the all the things that you like, but these are measured as a CT average. So I believe it's an average, weighted average across the whole major cities in the United States. So they managed to make these inflation baskets, and they are according to sector or categories, whether it's food, meat, fish, or services, or it's utilities, or it's housing, communication, medical care, hospital services, physician, prescription drugs, the lot, whatever you like. Okay, so then basically, yeah, here that's another code, but I'm showing you that I took ceteris paribus, the list, the official list of the custom duties. I had to take only the first page because there are another 5 or 6 pages of whatever is some unknown countries somewhere on the planet, which have a 10% base rate. Okay, so I, as a dummy variable or tariffs data, I just pasted on the code the major countries which have the most percentage of trade. Yeah, import share 15%, 13%, and then according to what is the import share in the towards the United States, or the export share towards the United States, there is the tariff rate. Okay, so now let's start to see. Okay, so what are we looking at now are a Sarimax and an ARIMA model. So those are two autoregressive integrated moving average models. The Sarima models has a seasonality also, variable seasonality parameter that works through the time series data that we are interpolating. And okay, just to have an idea, what is the chart that we get from the ARIMA and the Sarimax model. So the black line is the actual data that we have up to the latest month, I suppose is May, and the blue line is a flat ARIMA, including the tariff dummy impact on the as an exogenous variable, and the green line is the Sarimax, which includes the seasonality effect. You can see how, for example, the blue line, I would discard it because it's flat 3.2. But nevertheless, what we are interested in to see is the level jump effect of potentially of in CPI. The green line here, we have a level jump effect starting from, for example, from January 2026 of at 3.4%, and then there is an oscillatory, just an up and down trend between 3.4 and 3.2. But nevertheless, it's a jump of 1% of CPI upward. That if and when it materializes in the economy, then it's a bit of a problem, or it's a huge problem, because it makes very difficult for monetary policy to reduce interest rates. So I don't see how fiscal policy of having higher custom duties can work together with achieving lower inflation, and therefore allowing more space to the central bank to adjust the Fed fund rates downward, because inflation is converging towards 2%. Although all this mambo jumbo of the 2% target, it's a complete nonsense, and we leave it to the monetarists to believe in these models, which are all totally wrong. PCE, all items PCE forecast. So we have a baseline scenario ARIMA around 2.5%. The Sarimax model jumps to 2.8 up to 3%. So if and when these inflation measures, they receive a pass-through effect of a markup in prices, then basically it's very probable that in the data will show up as a higher inflation. The only way that inflation eventually decreases more, inflation basically decreases vis-a-vis higher custom duties, is that proportionally aggregate demand, consumer spending, will have to drop sharply, will have to contract sharply. That means that the economy will have to show up some negative GDP print, because in my brain, which I don't know if it works properly, but I love my brain. So just let's follow, you listeners and viewers let's follow this idea. We have custom duties, so we do expect prices to receive these custom duties to have a markup applied on retail prices. So eventually we have an inflation pass-through effect, and retail prices will have to go up. Also because businesses, they have business margins, so they can either cut stuff, they can fire people, and then they start to save from the labor or the wage cost of the business, but ultimately they will have to hike prices. Okay, so the final product, the consumer will see higher prices for whatever is the goods or services that it's imported, and it's imported with a higher custom duty. Okay, so let's assume that we will see higher prices. Okay, let's see the pre-CE will go up to 2.8 to 3%. Okay, so at that point, the Federal Reserve, dear Chairman Powell on the FOMC, which they are still thinking about the Lobach-William model of 0.78 neutral rate, which is bonkers, because the neutral rate, you'll have to take it from corporate borrowing, which is around 2.9% for the US economy, and that's my mobile. So let's say PCE goes up to 3%. Let's say CPI goes up to 3.2%. Can the Federal Reserve reduce interest rate? No. Or they can reduce it, I don't mind. They can say, okay, we have a one-off pass-through effect of inflation. We want to look through the inflation, the high printed inflation. We will cut interest rate because we know that inflation will be converging to 2% in the next quarters. Okay, they can use this phrasing and say, oh, it's a pass-through effect. We want to look through inflation. Okay, because our models show that inflation will converge to 2%. Anyway, it's temporary. It's temporary since 2020. Yeah, it's temporary. So if PCE or CPI will go up, you will have some higher printed inflation. That the Federal Reserve basically will be taking the calendar and see what saint is today, Saint Donald, Saint Charlie. They will start every day. They will look at the saint of the day and say, "Why I have this kind of situation?" And then basically Washington, whatever the president of the United States will ask, oh, why don't you cut interest rate? Okay, but you put higher custom duties. How am I gonna cut interest rate? So that's the problem. And in the end, basically, if you want higher custom duties and and at the same time you want to achieve lower prices, that means that you want to crash aggregate demand. So people they are prohibited to spend money. So consumer spending goes into the drain, and then you have a recession. So that's the only way you have lower inflation, is basically when you destroy aggregate demand, because you have these higher custom duties, and then you are, with fiscal policy, you are taking the risk of inducing a deceleration in economic activity, until and when the consumer doesn't spend anymore, you end up with an economic recession. And at that point, maybe you will see that inflation will start to print lower, going towards 2%. So that's basically the problem here that we have. I don't really mind. This is very, very funny. How can you do macroeconomic recession? Be very funny. So basically, let's take the ARIMA and Sarimax forecast. So we have a test mean. So we have already the average value of CPI, 2.6%. So we are going very well. We are going towards 2%. And then somebody comes and says, oh, we want higher custom duties. What's going to happen? Technically, what's going to happen is that CPI will have to increase to 3.2 or 3.3%. in the coming quarters, because we have a lag effect of the pass-through of the inflation pass-through of prices from importers to retailers and then to the consumers. So technically, I don't know, I believe that already in the coming quarter, for sure by the end of Q4, especially with the Christmas season, I don't know why I'm in August, I'm talking about Christmas. Maybe probably because I'm so hot and I feel like a turkey in a oven. I have no idea. Anyway, so in Q4 2025, probably we'll see some higher inflation data. And then I don't know what the Federal Reserve is going to do. They can say, okay, no, we're going to change the chairman. You can change any person you want. You can put your people in there. But I mean, and then you can try to to get another Bureau Labor Statistic. What is the guy who is in charge of the data and print like some kind of Chinese data, and then you can do it like that. I don't mind. But anyway, what the model shows me is basically that from the average level of inflation that the model extrapolates from the time series data, there is a pass-through effect, which is more consistent when the Sarimax model, so also the seasonality effect with the autoregressive integrated moving average works through the data, and it applies the custom duty variables according to country, to the import share and the rate of tariff. So here we see that pretty much when we go from the average value to the ARIMA or the Sarimax column, we see that all the median CPI 3.45 becomes 3.75, 3.9%. So technically it could be pushed up again towards 3.5, 4%, almost 4%. Core CPI 3.1 could be pushed back up again to 3.2, 3.7. These are not very large, but well, half a percentage point, it's a large move, because if I have core CPI 3.7, then technically the Fed fund rate, what has to be? 5.75? I don't know. So, core PCE, okay, 2.7, ARIMA forecast 1, okay, so that's very nice. Okay, so if the core PCE basically absorbs everything, excluding food and energy, and it stays at 2.85%, well done, no problem. You can basically start to see some rate cut in the cost of borrowing and the Fed fund rate. All item PCE. It deviates more when there is the seasonality parameter in the Sarimax model. All items PPI becomes negative. So these are very strange data, because basically what I could appreciate exactly is that for manufacturing input PPI or intermediate demand PPI, the result that I have, whether it's an ARIMA or Sarima model or doing an OLS model, those time series, they tend to generate a negative pass-through effect of inflation, or even deflationary. So I'm not saying that it's a bonkers idea, but paradoxically the data, the software basically only with the data shows some very unpredictable results, unexpected, on top of unpredictable, also unexpected results. Yeah, because the input and intermediate goods, that's what I was saying, they show to have some negative effect of tariffs. So that in a human behavior terms can be explained also by lower demand. So when basically that can be for good reason or bad reasons. Good reasons is that, for example, manufacturing or intermediate production of those goods, which are part of the producer price index, they are produced within the United States. So you have less external demand, less imports, and you can have a deflationary effect on the PPI index. The bad reason is that basically the aggregate economic output starts to shrink, and so there is less demand for input. That means that basically manufacturers or otherwise the industries in the United States, they will import less because custom duties are too high. So what their choice will be to shrink output. Okay, so the other bad reason is what happened in 1929, 1930s. So when basically you have recession. Okay, and then the Tariff Act in the 20th century was basically the gravestone for the economy, and it was a disaster. So if you are if you are a doctor, if you have a degree or post degree or are a doctor in philosophy in history of economics, you should know very well that if you impose higher custom duties, you are taking a big risk of forcing your own economy to reduce output. So basically, you are pushing your economy into recession for some sort of miracle drug fiscal policy. It can be okay, it can work in the beginning. It maybe will lag the effect when custom duties will start to run through the economy at full tilt. Then it will be very, very important and intellectually interesting to see what actually is the effect. Okay, it will be very important to measure GDP, inflation, and to see what are the real effect. There will be lower aggregate output, there will be lower aggregate demand. I don't know, the economy will be running at full potential, but you will have, I don't know, normal inflation. So, but that takes time, because we all have to wait to see how this custom duty tariff mambo jumbo evolves. Okay, I don't have any preconcept or I don't have any prejudice. A very important person like Karl Jaspers say that in a book wrote that prejudice it's basically your unconscious bias of not knowing what you got in front of you. That's why you form an a priori idea or judgment of something without knowing anything. So I don't have any prejudice, but if you read in your university career history of economics, you should know very well the history of the United States, the economic history of the United States, what happened with tariffs in the beginning of the 20th century. So you can have normal outcomes, but there is the risk of having manufacturers and industries that they are forced to reduce output, and that's not good. So those are all considerations that will come thereafter. And we see here also finished good or semiconductors PPI, how they jump quite wildly from what is the average mean and what the ARIMA and SARIMAX model generate. And funny enough, we have federal fund rate also jumping again. Memory chips jumping to 6%, steel, retail, PPI, restaurant meals, new vehicles from food at home, apparels. So for all baskets of measures of prices according to different parts of the economy, we can appreciate immediately that the pass-through effect, just mechanically using the formula, the model, the software, and injecting the tariff variable, you have a pass-through effect in the economy, at least on prices. And counterintuitively, for some other parts of the economy, as I say, the intermediate goods or manufacturing, or there are some deflationary effects, mostly related to producer price index, which I can explain myself either with decreasing output or with improved economic performances. So those are the scenarios that we could reasonably expect to see. Okay, so now let's see some other Excel tables. Thanks for following the channel, and I hope you find it very interesting and informative. So here we have the outcome of the multivariate OLS regression, of course, because we have an R-square, t-statistics, the p-values, target coefficients, and we have up to 3 lags. So we have the weighted tariffs, and then the lag applied according to the regional, what are the top countries and stuff like that. So it's very, there are many flavors of the model for interpolating the data. And we see here, for example, that CPI all items, okay, we have weighted average, we apply weighted tariff. Why it's a weighted tariff? Because in the code we have all these mumbo jumbo of countries, with a sequel of market share, import share, and tariff rate, custom duty rate. So what the OLS does takes a weighted average of the tariff, and as a single dummy, interpolates the dummy with the OLS regression. My cut, 1 second. So we have this weighted average tariff that it's interpolated with the multivariate OLS model. So it's important to see, we have a first coefficient which is 0.4%, no, 0.004, and then with the one lag we have a 0.54. So what that means is that basically for every point of the weighted average tariff, the CPI will increase by 0.54 with one lag. Okay, according to how we structured the model, we have basically 3 lags and 1 immediate coefficient. So we see that for all iterations, the one lag effect is the most prominent. Then, because it's an OLS regression and it's a linear regression, it's very difficult to expect a lag 2 or lag 3 effect, because it's not an autoregressive model. So we are not integrating the autoregression of data. We have just a linear interaction between AX plus B plus some error plus some epsilon, and then we have a dummy variable plus a dummy. So what comes out, basically the model, of course, it gives only a first lag effect, but nevertheless it's not a minimal coefficient, because it's for 1 unit of tariff we have 0.54. 1 unit of weighted average of tariffs, we have 0.54 effect on CPI all items. Then in that case, tariffs North America, I believe it's referred to Canada and other stuff, we have 0.67 with one lag. Tariffs from Asia, it's 0.74 coefficient on all items. So we'll have to sum up all these things. We'll have to take a weighted average of all the first lag coefficient just only for all items CPI. And for Europe, it's Buller coefficient 0.26, tariff for Mexico 0.12, China 0.14, Canada 0.16. So we see here that CPI index, it has only the first lag effect. Those other measures, counterintuitively, most probably, I don't know why this happens, or I just made some mistake in interpreting the model. We have more lagged effect. So actually the dummy works through also with the more than one lag. Okay, so basically, not basically, the energy component of inflation is not really affected, because the United States is mostly self-sufficient for what concerns the energy sector, although there are some quite large coefficient, 5.8, and then lag 2 minus, and then jumps again. So it's very, it's mixed in the lag effect of the OLS regression. But intuitively, we could argue that the overall effect for the energy inflation index, it's negative, because we have a very large minus 14 or minus 15. So overall, when we sum up all the coefficients, this will show up as a negative effect. So we can be sure, for example, that there won't be an important pass-through effect for the energy sector, which is important for the overall level of inflation in the economy. All items, less food and energy. Okay, so we have some positive lag effect. So the first coefficient is always very small, 0.03. Then with one lag, we have a 0.2. That's basically all items, less food and energy is core inflation. At lag 2, we have a negative coefficient. At lag 3, we have a very large positive coefficient. And I think the same dynamic, for what I can see, it repeats for every and each region that the model puts together. So we have basically an overall pass-through effect in core inflation with only a second lag effect, which could be theoretically a negative coefficient, but everything balanced out as a positive pass-through effect of core inflation, Asia has a large pass-through effect for core inflation, so less food and energy, which actually reflects the fact that from the US economy there are lots of imports from Asia which are not only related to food but to clothing, semiconductors, electronics, all sorts of stuff. So there is also with the 3 lag effect, a 2.4 coefficient of resulting from the OLS regression. So these are quite important. The most contained are all the interpolation with Europe and probably with Mexico, because these absorb, I believe they have a smaller, no, it's not because of the share of commerce. Sorry about that. The thing went, some charts have been very unpleasant, but so China is at 30%, Canada 35%, and Mexico 25%. And okay, so Germany, so the Europe, it's an average of the European countries. So okay, I can understand. It's not within the OLS has not worked within macro areas. They have been created with the model. So okay. For what concerns the European countries, we have some lag effect for core inflation. Mexico also has some effect of 0.04 or 0.39 with 3 lag. The pass-through of China, it's initially contained, 0.05, which is a small coefficient, but with lag effect, we see that there is a larger pass-through effect of the custom duty on the inflation measure. So 2 important things to understand, to bear in mind, are definitely the lag effect, of course, of the custom duty that will materialize with some time going by, and so that the prices will adjust sooner or later, more or less. Okay, so Canada, we have a negligible initial lag effect, and then a third lag at 0.55 coefficient. So the lag effect, it's more of a problem for the central bank for monetary policy, because that means that they will have to be on hold for longer if they want to wait and see effectively what is the lag effect of tariffs, what potentially can be the lag effect of tariff on prices. And so it's all basically a huge headache for monetary policy, because whether they would like to reduce interest rate, they are put on hold, because probably they will need to see what are the pass-through effect of these tariffs into inflation. And if the tariffs starts on August, they will have to wait at least a quarter, or they will have to wait, I don't know, the Christmas season. I don't know how long they will have to wait, if they want to wait. I mean, that's not my choice. So apparel, okay, the weighted average of tariffs, we have a positive pass-through effect of 4 units, more or less. And then we can basically, we can see region by region, which is North America, Asia, which has a large pass-through effect, or Europe, also, which has a pass-through effect. So the weighted average, also for all countries and regions. Education likely not to be affected too much by this. I cut again, 1 second. It is actually very time consuming and energy consuming to go and see all these things. So education won't be affected also because they're not. Communication, okay, it's a mixed picture. We have a negative first coefficient, first lag, and second lag that have positive pass-through effect, which could tend to decrease, to deflate with the third lag. So communication services, they will reflect quite almost not immediately, but with the shorter lag frame, the pass-through effect. Lag 1 0.72, it's a quite large coefficient to my knowledge. Okay, that will come mostly from Asia, also North America. The first 2 lags are quite large. Europe and Mexico, they are the most contained, or China, also very small lag coefficient. Canada. Okay, food and beverage. It doesn't seem to capture any pass-through effect in the coefficients. It will be overall negative because we have a negative first coefficient. Lag 1 just tiny positive, and then lag 2, lag 3 very negative. So overall it's negative pass-through for food and beverage. Okay, we'll have to go a bit quickly. Food at home negative, mostly because all these items probably they are produced within the United States, so that can be a good thing. Okay, cereals, bakery products, they will also mild effects, but it's not very important because we have too large -5. Yeah, okay, overall negative, negligible. Let's see weighted average. Okay, yeah, more or less not so inflationary for cereals and bakery products. Meat products, they are all produced in the United States, or eggs or fish. Although eggs, they've been a bit crazy with prices. Fruit and vegetables also, it doesn't seem to have a pass-through effect. Non-alcohol beverages, overall, will have a pass-through effect of 4 units, which can be quite large. And yeah, these are spread whether it's Asia or North America. We already know what are the regions. So the weighted average other food at home, it doesn't incorporate. There is an immediate coefficient 1.1, which is large, but then lag 1, lag 2, lag 3, we have negative coefficient, which tends to absorb the immediate other food at home. So if we have food retailers, to explain it like in economic behavior terms, let's say that we have food retailers, they put the stuff on the shelf which they import with a higher markup price. So we have an immediate 1.1 pass-through effect on inflation, other food at home, but then it's absorbed in the following periods. So we don't have any more increase in prices. So we have a negative coefficient, eventually some sort of deflation. So there is an immediate effect, whether it's other food at home or non-alcoholic beverages, which can be explained some sort of initial markup once everything has been worked out, and then the price stays at that level, and so then the inflation measure will absorb that one in Latin we say una tantum, once in a while price hike, and then the price will stay like that. So okay, housing also strangely will go up. So we have pass-through effects, weighted average. Only at the second lag we are balancing the first lag coefficient effect, but there is a 1 unit pass-through on housing, probably for items which are imported for housing construction or interiors. Shelter will tend to have a large coefficient with third lag. So shelter will probably see a pass-through effect in the longer term. Not in the longer term, but not immediately, because shelter is not immediately affected by custom duties. Are probably some round effect in the economy, and so there is a third lag effect on shelter that can be measured. Medical care, so probably that would be for the cost of medical care. I don't know for what reason. Probably imported medical materials or drugs or medicines and stuff like that. Okay, recreation also could be affected. First lag and third lag, they are large coefficient, so it's tells of the positive pass-through effect also for recreation and transport. Overall negative, no inflationary pass-through. Dairy and related products, no inflationary pass-through. I don't know if Canadian cheddar would be more inflationary. Food away from home, of course there is a positive pass-through effect immediately. Lag 1, lag 2, and then lag 3 tends to be deflationary, so the price hike is absorbed. So also food away from home, full service meal, it's a positive pass-through effect, which is very large. And the third lag, it has a very small negative coefficient, so the ability of absorbing price hikes in inflation for full service meal in this basket here is not very, there is not much elasticity or ability of absorbing price hikes. Limited service meal, It's a negative coefficient. Electricity also, the price of electricity will be affected by custom duties. I don't know why. Gas services definitely not. Physician services no. Hospital services will be could be affected by the overall custom duty. Prescription drugs also will be affected as a round effect. Also new vehicles, no, don't seem to be affected. Okay, used cars and trucks could be positive also immediately. 2.5, 2.3, very large coefficient, first lag. It's very consistent pass-through effect, inflationary pass-through effect on used cars and trucks, at least for the OLS model, which is not the holy grail. Gasoline, not at all. So, a nice exercise also for me to review all the data, and first time reviewing the data with you all together, so that we have an idea of what it means, having a pass-through effect of the inflation data. Some statistics are relevant, some other less. So that will take a longer time to consider the statistics. That's very, very interesting. Because not all statistics, they are consistent at the 5% level or 10% level. So adjusted R square, statistics, p-value, okay. This seems okay. Very interesting. So of course the data takes more time to be scraped through and just checked and double checked in all its granularity. I believe these some are negative exponentials, so are very small, close to zero. So some values, many values, they are consistent, they are statistically consistent. Some others, they are not really, they don't have a good t-statistic value parameter. So it means the OLS regression, it doesn't fit the data properly. Okay. Well, nevertheless, it's a first basically try to have an idea of how inflation works through the custom duties they will work through the economy. So let's take some charts, and hopefully we're not going to be here until 2050 or whatever you like. Nonetheless, it's very, very interesting, and I will be waiting with keen interest to understand what will be the pass-through effect of inflation. So, what do we have here? The top largest, for example, the top largest custom duty direct effect are, for example, we can see here apparel, gasoline of all types, I don't know why, and electricity or non-alcoholic beverages. You can see here what is the coefficient. It's very, very large, 25 or 23. I think I will have to just make it 100%. So those numbers, those are measured on the index. Okay, we know that the CPI index is 320. So that's the actual numerical parameter for how much it bumps up the whole index. Okay, so just not to be more confused. And here it's also very much informative, because we can see here the average effect, like electricity will go up by 4.6, 4.7%. Hospital services by 1.9% on a regional or weighted average. Used car by 1.3% pass-through effect. Apparel 1.1%. Medical care, we can see here all the list. Medical care, non-alcoholic beverages is 1% effect. Prescription drugs 0.7, 0.6. Food services, meal, all items. So from the largest pass-through effect, strange enough, is electricity. I don't understand why. I mean, in real economic terms, it doesn't make much sense, because electricity is produced within the United States. So I don't know what's the problem of custom duty with electricity. The problem is that the matter of fact is that it's an OLS regression, so it uses the dummy regardless what is the time series or the exogenous variables or the real economic activity. Like, in fact, here we have negative minus 2.3% fruit and vegetables, meat, cereals, dairy, food, new vehicles, energy. So there are many other parts of the inflation measures which actually work out negative deflationary effect. But then this has to be measured with what are the real economy effect of custom duties. And so by no means these models, they are perfect or they reflect exactly the real world. Far from it, that's for sure. But at least I have a statistical exercise for which I can navigate through and have an idea, a very rough idea of what can be the pass-through effects. Okay, so yes, so medical care apparel, used car and trucks, hospital services, I don't know, electricity. I don't know why electricity is very sensible to this. Average coefficient, Asia, Europe, North America, they are all slightly negative. And basically we see how the jump with the tariff, we have a 25% tariff rate. And yeah, when the tariff shock starts, so we don't know exactly how the CPI level at an index level would evolve. So that's the way it is. Basically, we'll have to collect the real data from the real economy and understand what would be the economic behavior of the many parts in the economy. So let's see some other iteration of these variables. And I think it would be useful to see these charts are okay. So let me just go back, because very interestingly I did run the OLS model. Okay. So let's make an experiment. We put the shock date on August 2024. So we try to see, okay, 1 year ago we have all these tariffs going in. Let's say they started in August 2024. Theoretically we can see it almost 12 months of data, 12 data points which work through the tariff shock effect on a linear regression fashion, or OLS regression. Model is still the same, it's an OLS regression, very simple. But we start ex ante. These charts are not very helpful. So the result that we have, they are mixed. So the average regional tariff impact ends up to be negative for some sorts of reason which I don't understand, probably because I need to study more or less regression. Then we have a nice table here with the regions, which is Canada. We saw Mexico, China, or Europe, or Asia, or North America. I don't know for which reason, North America. And of course the pink and the red, they are positive coefficient. The blue, or the light blue or stuff like that, Royal Navy, they are the negative coefficient. So we have a significant tariff coefficient heat map. It's basically a heat map. And most of all these are negative. They have a minus sign. We see a tariff Canada or China, the regional or geographic area. But then we have some lag effect, which are mostly positive coefficients. Some of the lag effect have a very red or dark red or orange or pink color, which are more orange, which means that it's a consistent positive coefficient, so there is a pass-through effect. Mostly all happen with 1, 2, or 3 lags, so it takes a few months for the effect to pass through. And we can see here basically the dashed line signs as a bar for the tariff shocks goes into place in August 2024. So we try to some sort of figure out what can be the future effect in 2025 by mirroring tariffs going into place in August 2024 on just with a linear reaction function. So all items, so basically we see that we have normalized CPI value going towards 1%, 1.2%. I don't know if that's on a monthly basis, but nevertheless the trend shows to be rising. So there are pass-through effects. These charts are unreadable, unfortunately. Sorry, I couldn't adjust the thing. And yeah, okay, these basically reflect the data that we already have. So it's it doesn't sit basically right, the data, the model, the extrapolation of the data of the model. So it's very difficult to use this technique of shifting backwards the tariff and having a linear model to mirror what can be the theoretical effect. But for what we can see, it's all uptrend. So the inflation index, it doesn't go down. It only goes up. I cannot say for sure. That depends from the dashed line, which implies the tariff effect going in. But nevertheless, the monomode inflation, I think I'm almost surely that reflects the real data. So, or it can reflect some. I have no idea. We'll have to double check with the real data, which I didn't have time to do so. What do we have here are the box plot, and basically the red numbers are the coefficient effect tariff variable according to geographic area and the lag effect. So inevitably there will be a pass-through of inflation. Now, exactly which part of the economy will be affected most, to my study or my trying in modeling this thing, there would be almost for sure direct retailers of imported goods and services are those that will have to absorb the most the cost of custom duties, higher custom duties. Whether it is manufacturing industry, semi-manufactured product and stuff like that, there it's more difficult because we have a finite product, so it depends how it's worked, what are the margins of the industry, so they will require very specific industry specific model that captures the price dynamic, the costs, input costs, and the price dynamic. So let's see what we find here. Another iteration. Okay, PC seems to be slightly negative. Okay, core CPI, or very small coefficients. So in here, let me double check. Okay, so here, what do we have here? Basically, we are not taking the data from the BLS, but we are collecting the data from an Excel sheet that I prepared from the Federal Reserve site. So I took basically all these time series that I took here, those are the older retailers producer price index, because my idea is to measure the what I've been saying for an hour now, the direct effect of retailers into the economy. So I'll have to capture some other time series from the St. Louis Fed and then use again the same bunch of tariff table that we know for sure, and we have some other interpolation of the model. So semiconductor producer price index is the basket of goods which will absorb the most of tariff, so we'll have the larger pass-through effect. Median CPI manufacturing seem to behave with no effect at all. Here estimated in percentage points, so it's 0.10% or 0.15%. So these are very, very contained pass-through effect. But what is most affected for this bunch of data is the semiconductors producer price index, retail trade, or manufacturing here starts to be affected. That's very interesting. All items producer price index, so finished good producer price index. So if we take some other data which are more related to retailers and producers, we see that all items, which is all commodities producer price index, or finished goods, or semiconductors, or retailers, manufacturing inputs, they will have to absorb a 0.5%, 0.05% inflation. So it's very, very tiny, which can be tolerable for monetary policy terms. Over here we have another iteration again, and okay, tariff score, and then durable goods, energy, food. Okay, so what absorbs most of the custom duties are durable goods, according at least to these results in percentage points. And again, what are the most affected are the semiconductors, in this case memory chips, of course, whether it's Vietnam or Asia, the Asia trade, those are the sectors. And yeah, the same theme of manufacturing on intermediate products, which seem not to be affected, at least in a linear linear model interpolation. Okay, CBOR, whatever. It's a lot of data, repeating over and over and over again the same things. So, if we have to draw some conclusion, what can be the conclusions? Okay, the conclusion can be basically that here, for example, we see like China, Mexico, or Canada, or India, or Vietnam, or Germany, or Taiwan, or Japan, and Brazil, the most affected sector or basket of goods are tech-related stuff. It can be semiconductors, or chips, or electronics. Also durable goods. For what concerns materials or intermediate or semi or manufactured or semi-manufactured products or intermediate input products or stuff like that, intermediate demand, producer PPI, or finished goods, here it's negative. On another model it's positive, so it's all a bit uncertain. Let's say uncertain. It depends on how the OLS run the model and what are the data that go through the model. So all these parts of manufactured semi-finite products, they seem not to be affected from custom duties. Now, other stuff that can be affected are restaurant meals or everything that has to do with the immediate retail trade industry. So all the products which are imported and then they have to be sold directly to customers, those will have to absorb the most of custom duties. What seems to be very much affected could be, as I said, as we can see, semiconductors or chips or stuff like that, although it depends what will be the economic policy overall and all the different trade deals and stuff like that. So the economy is not a linear model, it's an asymmetric dynamic model. So linear regression, it's useful from a statistical standpoint to see the linear reaction. So I inject a dummy variable with some lags, and then I can see the linear regression coefficient and see what is a positive coefficient or a negative coefficient, and I start to make some assumptions according to the different parts of the CPI or producer price index that are considering. Pass-through month-on-month inflation, that's very interesting. It's mostly the most comprehensive thing because intermediate demand is the least affected. Then semiconductors or the retail trade producer price index will be affected. Restaurants or vehicles, memory chips, don't know, very close to zero. Manufacturing can be affected. Gasoline, I don't think so. Finished goods, all items. So there is a whole variety of things that can reflect the pass-through effect of custom duties. Now, shall we see the quarterly change? Okay, inflation forecast, tariff impact, okay, time series, outputs. Okay, there is so much data that I couldn't. I was so excited. So I'm gonna record this thing with all the stuff that I have now, and it doesn't matter. I want to find the normal ARIMA or SARIMA model if I can find it. Reconnect and see if we can have the normal forecast. I think if we go up to the start of the code, I must have some other interesting stuff. Okay, I can tell you for sure that the inflation time series, they are not normally distributed, and they are not symmetric neither to 0 neither to 2%. Some are very close to 2% as an average measure, so that means that monetary policy managed to keep inflation around 2%, but most of the inflation basket we can see here, the original average of CPI is 2.5%, and that's starting from 2005, so we are not accounting for a humongous number of years, so we don't have enough data. And we have here the average value, the original mean vis-a-vis a standardized mean of 2%. You can see for all the baskets, inflation indices, not one will be around 2%, they all deviate from 2%. So inflation has always consistently been above 2% on average, year after year after year. So hospital services on average 5% a year, education 3.5%, gasoline 3.8%, full services meal and snacks 3.3%, limited services meal 3.7%. So on average, all above 2%. So they all deviate from 2%. And so the whole concept of inflation symmetric to 2%, it's a theoretical concept. It doesn't work in the real world. I can say that. I want to take the audacity of saying that the 2% inflation target of monetary policy, it's not a feasible inflation target because the economy is a dynamic model. I'm getting lost. So Sarima forecast. Do we have a Sarima forecast? Tariffs. Let me double check in my... Bear with me, guys. Nobody watched my video, so I want to take the time. There I want to take shelter, summary statistics. Let me refresh this thing. Inflation analysis output. What do we have here? Here, what do we have? Volatility shock forecast. Okay. Which also can be interesting. Cash models. Those are the volatility with the dummy. Regression. Tariff impacts. Why I cannot see the normal... why I cannot see the normal ARIMA? Why? Sarima forecast results. I don't see it. It's a pity. It means that probably I will have to run it again because it's probably not downloaded in the folder. Okay, so let's see if we have here some other stuff. Okay. I think I must have a model with the ARIMA forecast. I will give you in 1 second, no problem. Bear with me because I have so much data that I get lost in all this stuff. Okay. Okay, so let's have even another thing. Okay, so yeah, okay. So let's play the game. What's gonna be CPI tomorrow? Let's play the game. Let's play the game. What's gonna be CPI tomorrow? These are all the city average inflation indices. So what do we have here? What do we do with the drunken sailor? What do we do with the drunken sailor? What do we do with the drunken sailor early in the morning? Okay, so CPI all item. The forecast starts from September. Let's assume that's for August. 0.28. And we have a very nice forecast, 0.25 and then 0.21. Steady. So the out-of-sample forecast month-on-month, it's okay just for 3 months, not more than that, because it doesn't capture the autoregressive model doesn't capture the volatility or the variance in the data. And the Sarimax model, okay, 0.23. Okay. Food and beverage, 0.2% more or less, 0.23% seasonally adjusted or not seasonally adjusted. No, the Sarimax 0.23. Okay, although it's September, it's a PD, but let's take it for the next month. Food at home, 0.9%, 0.16%, shows an uptrend. The Sarimax is 0.3% month on month, yeah, that's not year on year or quarter on quarter. Cereals up 0.3% or 0.4% in the next month or two. Okay, meat 0.18 or 0.24% month inflation. Sarimax is negative, so that's wild. Okay, fruits and vegetables, negative print. The seasonal Arima model is a positive print, so they're not consistent. Let's see. Standardized residual. Thing is that the residual are quite large, so the auto sample forecast it can be that it isn't very precise, although the correlogram it doesn't show any lag effect of autocorrelation or something like that. 12-month forecast around 0. Okay. What do we have here? Okay, non-alcoholic beverages 0.36% month on month. Other food at home 0.3%, 0.28%. Dairy related negative. Okay, so let's stick with the inflation thing, CPI. Let's take the most relevant thing. Okay, so when my hunch for CPI it's 0.28% month on month or 0.25% CPI month on month. Then let's go fast forward and find core CPI. Although it's getting very late. Oh, these are new vehicles. Transport. Okay, never mind. So my guess is that CPI will be 0.28 or 0.25 month on month for the month of July or August, the next data release that we will receive tomorrow. And with that, I think I can love you and leave you, no problem with that. I will check and double check and triple check the all the models that I have here. So, okay, all items, so core CPI 0.26, okay. So basically, core inflation or CPI, we should be around 0.25, 28% month on month. Which I don't know year on year where it will be. It will be 2.6, 2.4, 3%. I don't really mind. But the main concept that we can gather here is that the custom duties of tariff, they will have a lag effect passed through on inflation. And I don't know for sure, for certain, how and when we will see these prices pass through into the economy. I fear that for Q4 there will be a very large inflationary print going into fall and into spending season in winter. We will see, I mean, American consumers, they will start to see the concrete effect of higher prices once these first imports that are coming in during summer will pass through the economy. Of course, it depends on economic sector. So we saw that semiconductors or chips or finite goods can be affected, or retail trade producer price index can be directly affected by this. Also medical services or pharmaceuticals, those parts of the economy can be affected, can have round effects of pass-through inflation. What seems not to be or not to be directly affected by custom duties is the manufacturing sector or the semi-finite goods or intermediate inputs or products. For all the other parts of the economy, except gasoline, from used cars to food at home and restaurant meals, those are likely to show some pass-through effects of inflation. Other stuff that we saw is that food, like domestic production of food or meat or fruit and vegetables, those should not be inflationary. I don't think so, because tendentially grocery shopping in the United States is quite pricey. I will wait and to see the other data, hopefully hoping that these data are not are as precise and accurate as possible, regardless of who is compiling the data at BLS or any United States institutions. And it's been a huge pleasure and enjoy the summer, and I'll see you soon with the next content. If you can follow the channel, you cannot find anywhere Econometrics model on YouTube. These are very, very complicated stuff, and I apologize if I say something wrong, or if you have something that you can just type in a comment and say, okay, you got this wrong, you need to go and read again what is the theory behind that thing. That would be very, very appreciated. And for all this, enjoy your time, and hopefully everything, things will only get better. See you soon.